This is John for johnsbeat.com and Global Women's Sports Radio. Today, I have the pleasure of being on the beat with a dear friend, a legend in the softball field, Barbara Jordan. How are you?
John, I'm well. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I very much appreciate your time. Ordinarily, if I was interviewing someone like you with the resume that you have in the world of softball, I would love to dig in and dive into all sorts of softball stuff. Today, we're not going to do that. We're going to talk about something a little more serious, something that a cause that you're working with. If you could give us a little bit of info on Always Bev.
Well, you want me to start with how it began? You want me to start there?
Yeah, if you could start with how it began, and then I've got a bunch of questions that'll feed off of that.
Awesome. Well, back in many years ago, my older sister Beverly was murdered by her fiance. And when she was murdered, there were 7 of us in our immediate family. When she was murdered, no one in the family said these words: "I can't believe Rich did it." And I've thought about that over the years. And of course, once he killed her, all the yellow flags, all the red flags came racing, they were just in full color. The warning signs were always there. He was in my opinion, a true life sociopath. And he was too good to be true. He was a charmer and, the type of guy that answers questions, but he doesn't answer questions. He has all the answers. And on paper, he looked really good. He was working on his 3rd master's degree. He had a really great job in aerospace. He had been in the Marines. So on paper, he looked wonderful, but there were many, many things about him that we didn't know. And so after he killed my sister, he went to prison. And 30 years after that, he came up for parole in the state of California and he was released. And it was very, very hard on me. And I thought, there are people like this, he's just going to mix right back into society and people don't know it. And I was thinking, what can I name my company? What am I going to name it? And my sister's name was Beverly. And I just was on an airplane one day and I thought, I'm going to name it Be Vigilant for Bev. And so that's really what it is, where I travel around the country. Sometimes I do the classes even online, but I teach people about situational awareness. And of course, we can identify the scary predators, but what about the normal looking people? What are the signs that we should look for? And what do we do when we see them?
Now, how did you get the courage to do something like that? Because obviously it's a very emotional, topic, dear to you, near to you. How did you get the courage to start something like that, though?
Yeah, like I love my sister Bev. She was my idol. Like she was my big sister. I could say, oh, I was her little sister. Like she was really the one person in the family I think that all of us went to. She was like the glue of our family, and all of us took it so hard. And so when her killer was going to get out, what bothered me the most about him getting out was that I truly believe he'll do it again. And that was all it took for me was, this isn't so much about stopping Rich. It's about stopping Rich and other people just like Rich that are manipulators and cons, and they fool people. They find a way into their inner circles. And the next thing you know, people have made a bad decision and their lives are changed forever.
And what kind of support have you gotten from your family? I assume they're all behind you, but again, it's a very touchy subject.
Yeah, it is. And I'd like to say, oh, they just dove in and really, no one talks about it very much. I have to say, no one talks about it very much. I do have a podcast, and in season 1, it's called Always Bev, the Ripple Effect. And in season 1, I tell the story about Bev and how she met this guy. And I go back all these years later and I interview her friends, but I also interview Bev has an identical twin sister. And Karen joined me on the podcast. And it's so painful, John. It was really heartbreaking for people to hear Karen, just talk about how much we miss Bev and how difficult it was. And her first encounter with Rich, how it was weird. And I'm a big believer that when something's weird or it doesn't fit, that's the warning sign. That's our intuition.
I've listened to a bunch of the interviews off of your website. I've gone on there to do a little research. And I thought you made a really, several interesting points, and I'll get to them. But one of the points that I thought was really interesting was you had said like, it's not just that weird looking guy over there. It could be the normal looking guy. It could be the guy next door to you. How do you tell? How do you know? How do you figure this out?
Yeah, it's a great question. And first of all, trust is earned. Trust is earned over time. And a lot of times in society, some people are just automatically very trusting, but that was taken away from my family and I. We're very guarded now. We ask a lot of questions now about everything, about anyone. We'll ask questions because we want all the dots to connect. And once those dots connect, they earn our trust over time. But it's not easy because when I do my classes and my presentations, I say to them, I'm going to show you 6 slides. And I want you to tell me which one of these men have never sexually assaulted, or killed a woman. Which one of these men? And the slides I show them, John, are good looking, normal men. And that's the scary part. And when I'm done, they can't answer the question. Nobody can answer the question. And so there are warning signs. And there are, sometimes I say when things are too good to be true, or when people don't answer questions, or sometimes, if you ever see a crime show and they're like, well, they're just a normal family. They're just a nice, normal family that live next door to us. Sometimes that's it, like it's too perfect, and sometimes I've met people in my life, friends who have met a guy and they're just too perfect. And sometimes for me, that's a yellow flag because we all know nobody's perfect.
No, absolutely nobody's perfect, and especially in today's society. How do you live without fear? How do you not fear everything every day, but
Hmm.
still be
I
vigilant?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I get asked that all the time. And so what I do is I teach people how to move around the world with vigilance. And they're just simple skills. Simple skills. If people took sometimes 30 seconds, find a better parking spot, sometimes 2 minutes, whatever it is, to make a better decision about staying safe, that eliminates the fear. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's what gas pump you pump gas next to. I don't just pull into a gas station because I'm in a hurry. My card is in my lap. When I pull into a gas station, I make a conscious effort of where am I going to park? Where will I be most visible if something was to happen? Is there anybody here that's concerning to me? That doesn't take very long. That takes me 15 or 20 seconds. And then there are tricks when you're getting gas. You stand with your back against the pump. So many times I watch guys get gas and they're just staring at the numbers and then their backs to the world. And the next thing you know, someone's coming up behind them and men are getting robbed at gas stations. And it's like, because their awareness is down. And so how do we move about the world and not be scared? We have excellent awareness in everything that we do. We're paying attention and we can laugh and we can have a good time and we can be silly, but we make decisions where we can be more safe.
That's a really excellent point. And I call it, for me in my life, through whatever I do, I call it eliminating the variables. Like I don't like when I run a marathon, I want to eliminate all the variables. I want to just focus on the marathon. And I think it could relate to this too, like you said, with the gas. So eliminate the variable. I'm here to get gas, focus on the people around me, focus on the situation. And in everyday life, I think every part of it is to kind of eliminate all the other stuff and not take it for granted, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. It's little things. You leave your house in the morning and you look outside and there's a car there that's not normally there. There's a couple things we can do to stay safe in that scenario. And I know we're all late, right? We're leaving first thing, and it's a couple things you could do. One, make sure your basic safety, make sure your doors and your windows are locked. And two, what I always do when there's a weird car out in front that doesn't belong, I send a simple text to the neighbor, because what does that do? It creates awareness in the neighborhood. And I said, do you know who's out front? And the next thing you know, you got somebody walking out to the street looking. And once these predators are identified and they're not hidden anymore, they drive away because predators don't want to be seen. Predators don't want to be caught. They always want that quick and quiet. That's why a lot of, domestic violence happens in somebody's house. They're not beating them up in the mall. They're doing it inside where nobody can see them. And there's many, domestic violence is its own beast, but, there's many, many warning signs for domestic violence. But the bottom line with predators, whether we know them personally or we don't, is that they want us in an isolated area. And 8 out of 10 times when a woman is sexually assaulted, 80% of the time, they know the attacker. In some form or fashion, they know the guy that did it. And the guy that did it isn't doing it out in public. He's taken them to an area of isolation, whether it's at a party and they get the woman to go down the hall or out in the backyard, whatever it is. They don't want to be seen and they don't want to get caught. And that's their MO. They do it in vulnerable situations.
That was one of the scariest things I heard in one of your interviews too. You said in doing it in isolation could be the woman's own backyard. It could be her own front door.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, women, especially women, need to check everything when, don't take it for granted when you're opening the door to anybody. Don't just walk out blindly in a dark backyard, even if it's your yard, even if it's fenced.
Yep. Yeah. It takes, if we do little things, we can keep our backyard safe. So we're not scared in our backyard. What does that mean? It means maybe having an extra light in your backyard so you don't need to peer through the darkness and wonder if someone's out there. That's how we eliminate the fear. And we eliminate the fear by trusting who we're doing something with. So if I'm at a party and somebody says, you want to go outside, and I don't know this person, yeah, I want to go outside, but I also want to take my friend with me. Or maybe I want to take his buddy and my friend with me, but I go in groups because that's not really what they want, but that's what I want because I know that's how I'm going to stay safe.
No, it's really easy if you're at a place and you see a creepy person. It's easy to spot the creeps. But what about if you're in line somewhere and the good-looking guy behind you just gets a little too close?
Oh my God, awesome. Yeah, personal space. When somebody invades your personal space, and for women, it happens a lot where the guy comes and stands right up on their back, like they're right up on their back. And for me, that goes through me. Like I'll give them an elbow in the gut. If I want to be nice, I'll take a step backwards and nicely and step on their toes and say, oh, excuse me. And when I spin around, I say, oh, excuse me. My arm extending like that is me creating space saying, get away from me. Get off of me. You shouldn't be breathing down my neck. You shouldn't be this. You don't stand this close to men in line. Why are you standing this close to women? I mean, that's what I really want to say. But I let my body language and my eye contact, do a lot of my talking. And for a lot of women, they don't necessarily always have the confidence to look people in the eye, or they're afraid to be rude. But guess what? I'm afraid to be attacked. So I'm going to speak up and do everything I can with confidence to prevent that from happening.
And I know within your organization, I know you teach some parts of self-defense. It's easy for somebody could look at you and say you're a former athlete, still obviously in great shape. It's easy for you to figure out, use your strength, use your skills. But how does the average woman do it?
Yeah, and John, your questions are excellent. There are 4 places on the human body that are vulnerable. Doesn't matter, man or woman. A man in the groin, of course, is more vulnerable. And I always tell women, it's not the penis, it's the testicles. And everyone thinks you got to just hit a man as hard as you can or knee him as hard as you can. And I know, doesn't take a lot. If you can slap a guy with an open hand in the testicles, it's going to let you go. You're going to freeze him for a minute. And the other vulnerable spots are the eyes. If you're ever in a scuffle, somebody's little, a woman's little or big, if they're ever in a scuffle and they can stick a finger in a man's eye, what are you going to do? They're not going to keep going. They can't compartmentalize that sort of pain. And the same thing with the nose and the throat. So if they're in scuffle so many times, and I've studied hundreds and thousands of cases over the years, you hear a story and they say, oh, the woman really fought, but he just outpowered her. And not that it's the woman's fault. I feel like a lot of women haven't been taught. But I want to say, did they fight for their life by trying to get a finger in the eye? Or did they fight for their life by fighting his arms and his body and his legs? Because if that's what happened, she got tired. That's what happens. But if women and men, if they knew how to fight smart, like I said to my friend Moose, he's been on my podcast, I go, when guys are going at it and their life's on the line, why would they not hit each other in the groin? Like, I mean, if you really want to be safe, all you got to do is get one blow there and you could be on your way and get out of there. It's true. It's so true.
Absolutely.
but it is the eyes, the nose, the throat, and the groin. And if people learn to do just simple strikes, you don't have to punch somebody. Yes, understanding some self-defense techniques of hitting somebody with the palm of your hand. Yes, that can help you. But just knowing that, having a plan, I always say you have to have a plan. If you as a woman say, well, I'm just going to get his groin no matter what, if I'm ever attacked, I'm going to do whatever I can to get something, my knee or my fist, anything, my foot to the groin, chances are you're going to get away. But if you don't have a plan, if you don't know these things and you're surprised and you're attacked, probably not going to know what to do, and you're probably going to freeze, and it's probably not going to be favorable.
You made an excellent point. Again, in one of the interviews, I keep going back to the interviews. It's not about the women fighting the men. It's not about outlasting them. It's about getting away. So it's whatever's the quickest, best, easiest way you just got to disable them for 10 seconds or whatever it is to get away, and then scream and make a scene.
Mm-hmm. And people don't understand that their voice is a great weapon. Like if I'm in a parking lot and somebody's approaching me, first of all, I always say, if something is strange, if someone is strange, keep them at a 6 to 8 foot range. And you do that one with your awareness, because you see them coming. You don't allow them to get right up on you and say, hey, do you have money? Hey, do you have directions? Where you can't defend yourself if they're this close to you. But if you keep them at that 6 to 8 foot range with your body language, your arm is out and you're like, no, thank you. Your head is no, your fingers, everything's saying, no, I'm not interested. And you start using your voice and you say, no, not today. No, thank you. Not today. No, don't come in. Stop. Don't come any closer. I have actually said that to people. I was approached in a park around dusk, and I was actually leaving with a friend, and this man and woman, and by the way, most women don't kill women. That's been done, but most murders are done to women by other men. But if a woman is going to commit something violent, she usually does it when she's with a man. It's a man and a woman type, combination. So we're at a park, and this woman I turn around, and this woman just approaches right upon me. And she keeps coming, and she goes, do you know where we could see a nice sunset? And I say, no, I don't. And she keeps coming towards me, and I say, stop. And because she's getting in my personal space, the guy is standing back, and he gives me a bad feeling. And she keeps walking towards me, and I say, stop. I put my hands up in front, and she stops. I'm telling you, it works. If you use your voice, everybody knows what no is. Everybody knows what stop is. Everybody knows that with body language as well. You see me doing it. If you can learn to use your body and your voice, you can keep people at that 6 to 8 foot range. And if they did want to attack you, well, now you're in a situation where you can actually defend yourself. But if you're surprised and your arms are against your body and they're in on you, now you're at a complete disadvantage.
So what kind of services do you offer?
I do online courses. My favorite are in person, because I think there's so much, you get so much more out of the self-defense, and watching other people in the course do these techniques with everybody in the group. But really, it's a 90-minute presentation. I've traveled all around the country doing it. And the first 40 to 45 minutes, it's a PowerPoint presentation. And it's about skills to stay safe and how to recognize one of your questions. How can you tell the difference between, a nice guy and somebody that's too good to be true? Like, what are the warning signs? And I use real life stories. I share the story of my sister. You name me a woman that has died recently in the news, I add them to my presentation. And some of them are always in my presentation. There's a young girl out of Iowa State, and she was killed on a golf course at 9 o'clock in the morning. She was murdered to death on hole 9. And her story will always be in my presentation. And the point of her story is not that it's horrifying. It's horrifying that the guy who did it said to his friends just days earlier that he felt like raping and killing a woman. That's what he said. And then he went out and he did it. And this was an international exchange student who was training to become a professional golfer. She was going to be recognized at the Iowa State halftime football game on the weekend. And it's a tragic ending. But I tell that story, one, to share the fact that not everybody has normal thoughts. that there are some people in this world with bad intentions, specifically towards women. He didn't say, I want to rape and kill a man. He said he wanted to rape and kill a woman. And the other thing is, women specifically always have to have a plan. Doesn't matter where you are, even on the golf course at 9 o'clock in the morning. If you're alone, if no one can hear you, if no one can see you, that's a vulnerable atmosphere and anything can happen. And that story is 100% proof that we all need a plan of action, whatever it is. And I do think that women should always have a plan, self-defense wise. But if I was on a golf course and when I am out, I've got a lot of gadgets, anywhere from pepper gel to this or that. But if I'm going down fighting. I'm definitely not going to be caught off guard.
Now, you brought up that story, and it's horrible. But so, what do you do if somebody says that to you?
Exactly.
What do you do?
Yeah. I mean, if you're friends of that person, you have to report something like that. The guy who actually was homeless, he actually lived in a tent across the street from the golf course. I'm sure it wasn't the first time he saw her, but like I said, he got his urges or whatever he had. And, she was same routine every morning. And again, when we have the same routines, people wait and watch. Your neighbor's routine, what time they come, what time they go. And it's like that. You could pick an athlete. We know what time they go to the gym. We know what time they lift weights, all that stuff. And some people prey on our routines and they wait for us and they wait for, he didn't go after her when somebody was golfing with her. He went after her when she was by herself. And sometimes all it takes is one time you do something by yourself and that predator makes their move.
And obviously, this is the majority is aimed at women. Totally understand that. But I assume there's some men that take your course.
Absolutely, there are, and I was just up in Iowa recently, and there was a 25-year veteran of law enforcement, and he sent a text the next morning, and he goes, "I've been in law enforcement 25 years, and I don't think anybody has ever taught this course better." He was an observer with his wife and his daughter, but I took that as a big compliment. And there were dads, that showed up, and sometimes they bring their sons to show up, and I welcome everybody. And yes, I'm always heavy on the safety towards women, because most of the time when somebody is sexually assaulted, it is a woman. In fact, 9 out of 10 times it is a woman. And I just, overall, I mean, there's a lot of violence going on in this world. Some people have bad intentions. Some people are angry. People snap, and we all have to be vigilant in everything that we do. And all it takes is awareness. If we're aware of our surroundings, then we can make good decisions of, maybe I shouldn't be at the bar here. I shouldn't stay any longer, because those guys that just wanted to buy me a drink and they seem so nice, one of them keeps staring at me super hard and it makes me uncomfortable. And maybe the friends go, "Well, did he do anything?" And they go, "No, it's just how he made me feel." Well, that's intuition. And intuition is one of our best gifts. And when your intuition kicks in and it tells you, I don't know what it is, but I have a bad feeling, I'm always like, abort. Leave that person, get out of that situation, leave early that night. You know what I mean? This is not the night to shut down the bar. This is the night to get home and leave with a group of people who you came with. You don't leave anybody behind. You all go together and you all leave together. And you talk about our guys safe, a story that happened recently, and I believe it was in the Chicago area. A guy and a girl go to a bar. They meet 3 guys. And they all have a nice time. And the 3 guys say to the couple, "Why don't you guys come back to our apartment and hang out? We'll have some drinks." And what I'm trying to get through people's heads are, you don't know them. You just met them. You don't know what they're capable of. That's a vulnerable situation. Their apartment is where somebody can't see and somebody can't hear you. And so they go to these guys' apartment, and the guys real quickly drop something into the boyfriend's drink. He passes out, and all 3 of the men rape the woman. And that's how quickly it happens. And it's all because, yes, people had bad intentions, but they were at a bar, they were having drinks, they let their guard down, and they made a bad decision. And it's not their fault. It's
No,
just,
no.
we can't make decisions like that. We just can't in today's world and expect that everything's going to be okay. I live in a nice neighborhood. Those sort of things don't happen to me. When my sister was murdered years ago, my mom, and they lived in a nice neighborhood. My mom said to me, she goes, these sort of things don't happen to people like us. And I just looked at her and I think back and I think, what's that mean? What does that mean? But it happens everywhere. It doesn't matter what your ethnicity is. It doesn't matter what type of neighborhood you live in, what city, what state. This stuff is violence is everywhere. And what we can do to be stay safe and what we can do to not live in fear is to create that awareness within our circles of family and within our circles of friends. And when we do that, like me and my friends and my family, we're so vigilant that when we go out, we are safe because we know, hey, if I'm not looking, somebody else is paying attention, and that's all it takes. But we have to empower each other with those skills.
Well, Barbara, before I let you go, tell everybody where they can get more information about.
Yeah, my website is alwaysbev.com. It's alwaysbev.com. My social media is always be vigilant or always_bev. And my podcast is actually turned into a podcast about safety. So I have stories on there, victims that come forward, experts that come forward, and they talk about sex trafficking, online dating, women that have done online dating, what they watch for, what concerns are, anything like that. But the podcast is Always Bev, The Ripple Effect. And I only thought I was going to do one season of it and tell the story of my sister, but I'm just closing up season 5. And I love that little podcast. I really do.
Well, I gotta say, Be Vigilant is a beautiful tribute to your sister. It's a perfect name because it does imply being vigilant and not fearful. And you're doing such a wonderful service for everybody. And I greatly appreciate your time. I greatly appreciate everything you do. And I wish you a lot of success in it. And anything that, we can do to help you in the future, don't hesitate to contact me.
I will contact you. And John, I do want to say this, that it touches my heart that you asked me to be on your podcast. And it touches my heart because you're a man. And I want to tell you, in all the courses I've ever taught throughout the country, and I've done hundreds of courses, that there's probably been 5 men or less that have hired me to do the classes.
Wow.
It's typically women that call me. And so you understanding and telling me in an email the importance of this class, it says what a nice, loving man you are. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I have to credit my sisters. They pounded into me over the years.
I like it.
Barb, thank you so much for your time. And again, if we could ever help you again, or if you want to jump back on, if there's new stuff that you're offering, just give us shoot me an email and we'll bring it back on.
Anytime, John. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.